Hi submarine friends, welcome back to watching me build my diesel electric submarine. So yesterday I made a video talking about my launch date, which is exciting, and what I have to do with my air supply now that I have deleted the external air supply. So this is done. I've swapped out this tank. This is a fully charged tank. I rerouted this line, I moved this gauge, and I did some labeling in here as well. So you'd be surprised when you don't work in the submarine or use the submarine for any amount of time, you forget. You have to think about where things are. So I labeled it all just to be on the safe side. Actually, I see I got to label one more. So what I want to do is I want to touch on a couple of comments that were made about a checklist. Absolutely, I need a checklist. Because in this submarine, there's really, excuse me, a bunch of things I have to do because of the diesel engine. It really complicates things. But I have a fail-safe. So the comments were driven by the fact that I forgot to open the valve for the exhaust. And that's because I was doing a several-day vacuum test on the hull to see if it would leak at all. And I was rigging up my system for putting a vacuum in the hull when I leave the submarine tied up in a lake. And the reason for that is there is no way you can open the hatch when the submarine is under vacuum. So that's to protect people from being nosy. It protects the submarine. Nobody can get in here to mess with it. If somebody got in here and did something and I didn't know, it could be life-threatening. So it's quite important that I secure. So it actually has two padlocks. One, you can't even get into the sail. The second one locks the hatch with a padlock. And then there's the vacuum. So I've really done my due diligence to keep people out. But back to my redundancy. So let's say I missed something on my checklist and there was a valve open. It's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. And I'll tell you why. Because my final step before diving the submarine, and I do this religiously, no exceptions, I pull a vacuum. So I pull a vacuum inside the hull with the compressor. So what I do, this is my altimeter. This is the heart of the life support system. So it does two jobs. One, it tells me what's going on with the life support system. And secondly, I know when I've pulled a vacuum prior to diving. So I like to do that because it seats the O-ring on the hatch. And I have a budget hatch land, it's called. That's what the hatch sits on and seals to. I don't have a $2,000 stainless steel 1-inch thick land. I have a carbon steel land because, come on, I'm not rich. So all I did is I painted that land. So I painted it and then I sanded it really smooth, and that's what the O-ring rides on. Now it doesn't last really long. Probably every year, I'll have to repaint it and resand it, but who cares? It's a tiny little job. It's no big deal. And it's those things that make the submarine affordable. It doesn't affect the performance of the submarine. It just keeps the cost to a level where I can afford it. So I actually sent a message to a friend of mine who was a lead pilot and an engineer at Triton Submarines. And I asked him about if they pull a vacuum on the interior of their submarine, and they don't prior to diving. But he did mention, which makes total sense, and I have the same issue, when they turn the air conditioning on, they have air conditioning. They need it because those submarines are a glass bubble. So imagine how hot they get sitting at the surface. So they put the AC on, which cools the air, which automatically creates a vacuum because that air is shrinking. So what I do, let's just do a simulation here. So all the valves are closed right now. So all I have to do is I have to open this valve, which, you can't see it. Let me just move this here. There we go. That's the one I have to label. So this valve allows air from the compressor to go into the system. So if I'm going to use this air, I can leave that valve open because I have a 6,000 psi check valve in here to protect the compressor from water. So I can leave it open, but typically I would close it. So it's open now, and I'm going to send air in there. So I've got this set at 0. So what I do, I turn the compressor on. Oops, I forgot to open that valve. Okay, so let's start this over. Let me just put my glasses on. Okay, so we're zeroing the altimeter. And we have a vacuum because the gauge moved ever so slightly, and that's all we need. Plus I can feel it in my ears. I actually have to pop my ears. So now the hatch is sealed. The submarine is sealed, and I know that because I pulled the vacuum. If there was any leaks at all, I wouldn't pull a vacuum. So let's open this. You can hear the air leaving. And my ears just popped. So if I forgot to close any valve in the submarine, whoa, that really popped my ears. I pulled a bigger vacuum than I should have. So there you go. Now let's leave that open. You can do that all day long and you're not going to get a vacuum. So we close this up, we hit the compressor, and it pulls the vacuum in here. And then as soon as we have just the slightest little vacuum, that's all I want. And I can actually feel it in my ears before I see it on the gauge. So I probably don't even need to use the gauge. So then we can just close that off and we're ready to dive. So the whole purpose of this is to ensure that it's safe to dive, that all the valves are closed. So like I said, if I miss a valve, this catches it. I never have to worry about missing a step in my checklist. So that's what keeps me feeling comfortable prior to a dive, because look at all the things in here. I've got fuel to shut off. Actually, these have to be open. Those stay open all the time. These are the valves that allow air to go into the ballast tanks. Now, the only reason there's a valve there is if there was ever a break in the line or something. You always have a valve at a penetration hull. I've probably said that 1,000 times now. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out. I want to add that I have that extra layer of safety. Now, when I start diving at White Swan Lake next week, I'm going to do a step-by-step procedure of a dive, so you guys can see how I make this safe and how I keep it all under control. So that's it. I just wanted to show you guys that because I was worried you guys thought I got a big moth in here. Okay, well, I can't get him anymore. He went under. I guess I have a co-pilot. Anyways, that's going to be it. Ciao.